You know, there's a passage in Scripture. It says, Jacob I loved and Esau I hated. That word hated there, what it means in Hebrew and in Greek is hated. If it meant something else, they'd have translated something else. It really does mean hated. Now the question is, how did he hate him? Because if you look at Esau's life, every promise God made towards him, he kept. And more abundant than even the declarations of his father. And when Jacob came back across to meet with his brother was so wealthy and prospered, he needed nothing from Jacob's hand. So how is it that God hated Esau and loved Jacob? Well, if you look at Esau's life, you see that Esau could just be Esau. And Esau could do anything Esau wanted to do. And Esau was never corrected, never disciplined, never chastised, never punished. Esau could just be Esau and have a good time about it. And God beat up Jacob almost every day of his life. God let Esau be Esau. God refused to let Jacob be Jacob. And the distinguishing mark between the two men is the loving discipline of God, cleansing and changing one, and in the other we see no transformation whatsoever. As a matter of fact, except for a bit of spiritual dullness there at the beginning, Esau looks a lot more moral than Jacob. I mean, after all, Jacob was the deceiver, the heel grabber. But what do we see? A man coming back into the land after years and years of being disciplined, chastised, cared for by God. It wasn't Esau limping. It was Jacob. And God had done it to him. I look back, for some of you young men, I look back on my life and in my younger years, everything was physical. Everything, it was so important. Weightlifting and sports and everything. God destroyed every bit of that in my life. And although I'll never get on Trinity Broadcasting preaching this message, God has broken my body into bits. I have a genetic bone problem. I have both my hips replaced. I have now all my wrist is filled with metal. They're looking at doing my elbow. My bones are eating one another. And you know what? It's not Satan, it's God. And what is God doing? Cleansing me from all my idols and my filthiness. Because in this true Christianity, ministry and everything else is of quite little importance. But the great goal is conformity to the image of Jesus Christ. And everything in your life, including your marriage and your children, everything has one great purpose: to conform you to the image of Christ. Now let me ask you a question. Can others look at your life? If we could put a history of your life on a video and show it here, would people be able to see how God has miraculously worked in your life, cleansing you from filthiness and idols? Guarding you, cutting you off, shutting you in, doing everything necessary in order to transform your life and make you into the image of Jesus Christ. Because that's the reality. Let me say something here. It's the reality not in the super spiritual or the super called. It is the reality in every true believer. And why do I have to say that? Because in the American church we have three groups now. We have the spiritual Christian, the continuously carnal Christian, and the lost man. The Bible knows no such three groups. The Bible only knows two groups. And those groups are the spiritual Christian and the carnal lost man. Can a Christian sin? Christians most certainly do sin. Can a Christian fall into carnality? Yes. Can a Christian live there in a continuous state as a lifestyle? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Now, before I go on, I just want to make an emphasis here of something that is so very, very important. In verse 23, I want to go back for a second. He says, I will vindicate the holiness of my name. Now, how will He do that? Look in verse 24. Now, I'm going to read giving special emphasis to personal pronoun I. For I will take you from the nations, and I will gather you from all the lands, and I will bring you into your own land. Then I will sprinkle clean water on you, and you will be clean. I will cleanse you from all your filthiness and from all your idols. Moreover, I will give you a new heart, and I will put a new spirit within you, and I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh, and I will put my spirit within you, and I will cause you to walk in my statutes, and you will be careful to observe my ordinances. Now do you see what He means by vindicating? God's saying, this is my work, and therefore my reputation stands and falls with it. I will start a work in you. I will finish that work because my name is at stake. Have you never read, He who began a good work in you will finish it? Remember when Israel in all their rebellion, and God tested Moses and basically said, Moses, get out of the way, I'm going to kill him. Moses said, no. By God's grace, He interceded. He said, no. Why? Your enemies, the Egyptians, will say that although you were strong enough to save them from Egypt, you were not strong enough to bring them into their own land. And I want to tell you something. Most pulpits in America are guilty of blaspheming God in this regard. They teach a gospel in which it demonstrates God is strong enough maybe to pull them out of hell, but He is not strong enough to transform their lives. And I want you to know the same God who can save, who can resurrect His own Son from the grave, is strong enough to transform your life. And Ephesians backs me up on that one. He is. His reputation rides upon it. But because of the way the gospel is preached in America, we see just the opposite. We see Christianity being a laughing stock. Because most of those who are called Christians, even by their pastors, are not Christians. And therefore, when someone says, I'm a Christian, no one says, behold the power of God, nor vindicates His holy name. And that's because we desire to build big churches more than we desire to glorify God. And most men are building their churches on the bones of unconverted church members. Now he goes on and he says, let me just say something here in verse 25, the sovereignty and power of God. So many people, whenever they hear the word providence or sovereignty, they're always thinking about election and about salvation, justification, things like that, elected before the foundation of the world, and all that's true. But I'm afraid we're really robbing ourselves of the word sovereignty in a terrible way. We only apply it nowadays, to that one work. When the idea of His sovereignty is seen throughout every aspect of our salvation from the beginning to the end. Everything in our life. Me missing my plane yesterday is under the sovereignty of God, and therefore I expect wonderful things to come from this. But let's just look for a minute. He goes, I will sprinkle clean water on you, and you will be clean. I don't know if He said it that way, but I think that's the truth. I'll sprinkle clean water on you, and you will be clean.